Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have 5 cards, 1 kit using the December 2019 Brutus Monroe Inspiration Box, and I believe it's still available. If it is, I'll definitely have it listed down below along with all the other items that I'm using. I did do an unboxing for this kit the other day, so I will have that linked down below so that you can head back and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Alright, let's get started with our first card. I'm going to use the Simple Blend in this kit, and I've put that over some of the blue cardstock that came in the kit that I had trimmed down just a little bit on the left and the right hand side. And I'm going to use some Festive Berries Distress Oxide ink along with my Vivas Beauty brushes, and I'll just blend that all over the strawberry. And I did leave a little bit of a highlight in that upper left hand corner. And now I'm cleaning it off in between, just obviously so you're aware. And I'm going to move on to the little stem, which I have used this is pine needles. And then I'm going to bring in forest moss just for the edges. And it ends up kind of just blending together, so you really can't tell, but it's okay. Now I know. And then I'll clean that off again, and then I'll line up the little seeds on the strawberry. And as you can tell, I'm using Post-its to keep myself from blending in areas I don't want it. And now I'll grab the Mustard Seed Distress Oxide ink. And the reason this works on this ink is because these are distress oxides, so they layer on top of each other pretty nicely. And it's not super dark, it's fairly subtle. I will end up covering that up later, but I do like that you can do it. I have a strip of white cardstock, and I'm going to put this inside of my mini Misty because I love these sentiments, but I wanted this one to be, long. So I'm going to do some interesting masking. So I'm going to use some more Post-it tape. And I'm covering up the areas that I don't want inked up, and then I'm going to use my Festive Berries Distress Oxide ink over just the word berry. And any places it gets that I don't want, I'll just wipe that off with my finger, stamp that down, and then I can clean off the stamp really, really well. I'm using some Squeaky Clean from Brutus Monroe and a microfiber cloth, making sure that's good and clean because I'll pick up the stamp, and then I'm going to line up the next part that I want stamped down. I'll pick it up with the door of my Misty, use the Post-it tape to cover up the area I don't want stamped once again. I'm going to use some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and then I'll ink that up. I did get it in an area I didn't want, so I'll just wipe it off with my finger really well. And then I'll close the door of the Misty, and so far we have very much. And then I'll clean that off again really, really well. And then I'll move the stamp one more time. This time I'm lining up the thank you part, and once I have that lined up, once again, I will close the door of my Misty, use the Post-it tape to cover up what I don't want covered, ink up the stamp, and then I will move the Post-it tape. Don't forget to move the Post-it tape, and then I'll stamp it down. I thought about trimming this up, but then I decided I was going to wait because I want to have it centered before I start cutting. So I do grab some Brutus Monroe foam tape, and then I'm just going to use my scissors, my Tim Holtz scissors, to cut that. And then I find I do want another piece, but I'm going to need to cut this in half. And so these Tim Holtz scissors work really well for cutting the foam tape, because this is a very sticky foam tape, which is actually something that I really like about it, because you don't have to worry about your project falling apart, which is very nice. And then I'll just save that other piece for another time. And then I'll use my paper piercer to peel off the release paper of my foam tape, and then I will kind of center my piece onto my glass mat, which I love that because it has the grid, and then I will stick down the thank you very much. So isn't that cool? You can take one sentiment that, you know, was all bunched together that would probably look better as a rounded or a square, and you can stretch it out, which I had fun doing. So give it a try. If you haven't done that before, you can do it. Alright, I'm going to attach my panel to my card base, which is some of your Brutus Monroe Not Your Mama's heavyweight cardstock. This stuff is awesome for card bases. And then once that is down, I'm going to add some extra embellishments. At this point I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I want to use the little like frosty bits that came in the kit. Came in this cute little jar. And so I'm going to use my Nuvo Crystal Drops. This is just the clear Crystal Drops, this Morning Dew. And the reason I chose this is because if for some reason it pokes through, it's glossy, which is kind of what I was looking for. So I put a little bit on the strawberry and a little bit on the leaf, and then I'll just cover it with the little embellishment that came in the kit. I'll wipe that off, and then I'm going to actually take my paper piercer and I'll push those parts down a little bit because I didn't want it to be sticking up so much, and the only reason it was sticking up so much is because of that Nuvo drop. So then, as a final bit of embellishment, I will grab the Nuvo drops in the color Bright Gold, and I'm going to go over each of the seeds because they just weren't sticking up enough for me. And that's going to finish off our first card. So there it was. Those simple blends are so fun and easy to work with, and I'm happy with it. For card number 2, we're going to do some sponging and foiling, and so I'm starting off with one of my tiniest Vivos brushes, along with the Distress ink in the color Worn Lipstick, and I am just loosely going over all the strawberries. I don't care that I'm going outside the lines. In fact, I kind of am encouraging that, just simply because I feel like it adds to the design. And then I'm going to move on to some Twisted Citron, and I moved on to a little bit bigger Vivos Beauty brush, and then I'm going to use one of my fine ones. It's a real thin one so that I can get some of the branches that are in there, and then I'll just work that all the way through. And I love how I just love the look of this. I think it's really a cool look. And so I'm going to move on to doing some foiling here in a second. I can't show you the foiling that I'm going to be doing simply because I don't have the room on this side of my room, and I live in an older home, so outlets are at a premium around here. So I've cut down some copper foil, and then now I've got a piece of copy paper that I've just cut in half. Or I mean, not cut in half, folded in half. And I'm going to use a shim, and don't pay attention to what I do. You should put the shim, or at least for mine, you need to put the shim underneath. So I did it this way and it didn't work. So I just stuck it underneath, and then I run it through my laminator about 3 or 4 times, and then you end up getting some good lamination. Now, every laminator works a little bit differently, so everybody's going to get a little bit different result. You just have to kind of work with what your machine does, but mine is a kind of inexpensive laminator from Amazon, and I'll have that listed down below if it's something you're interested in doing. I'm going to trim down 2 tiny pieces of the glitter stock that came in the kit just to bring out some more of that copper, and then I will take my reverse tweezers along with some glue, and then I will stick that down, both of those, lining those up onto my glass mat. And I'm not worried about the overhang because I'll cut that off later when these have dried a little bit. And then once again with the other piece I'll do the same thing. Now don't pay attention to the You Are Berry special that I already have stamped. I stamped that in Rusty Hinge and I didn't like it. I was trying to go with the copper color, and I thought I really need to bring out more of the berry color. So I've put some Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide ink, and then I covered that with my Icicle embossing powder by Brutus Monroe. Because it's a pigment kind of ink, it will hold that embossing powder and then you can emboss it. And then I'll trim off the excess. I'll put a little foam tape eventually behind my sentiment, but first I'm going to tack down my panel to my card base, which is some more of your Not Your Mama's heavyweight cardstock, which I believe that stuff is now back in stock, so head on over there and grab some. It's that 120-pound cardstock that is just awesome for card bases. Now I'll peel off the release paper on my foam tape, and then I'll stick down my sentiment. But I decide I want to have a little bit more going on, so I'm going to grab Nuvo drops in the color Metallic Shimmering Rose, and I'm going to put those down. Now they aren't real prominent here, which is where I end up deciding to grab some of the sequins that came in the kit, but I did put a few drops down. And I'm sorry that my camera just keeps going nuts, so it's that glitter stock which is causing, and there's Max. Hello, Max. But my glitter stock is causing my camera to be like, just, it can't focus. It's just not sure what to focus on. So here's where I grab the sequins, and I'm actually going to take the ones that are like the iridescent see-through ones, but they're the same sort of color as the berries, and so they're very subtle on there, but they are on there, and I think it's really cool because then that Shimmering Rose metallic, or Nuvo drop pops through the center of those, and it's really kind of cool. And then I just have one more drop, just looking for the right size sequin, and then I'll stick that down using my crystal katana, and then that's going to finish off our card. So sorry it was having a hard time focusing, but when you add glitter stock in there, you end up with issues. For card number 3, I colored up this beautiful panel, one of the foilables, using my ARTEZA colored pencils, and I didn't show that to you because we'd still be here if that were the case. It did take me quite a while. Colored pencils, for whatever reason, take me a lot longer than any other medium to color with, but I do love the way these turned out. So we already have that panel ready to go, And then I'm going to cut down some of the, it's like a slate colored cardstock that came in the kit. And I'm going to cut that down to be exactly 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so it will cover the front of an A2 size card. For my sentiment, I could not decide if I wanted to do it on that slate cardstock or if I wanted to stamp my sentiment onto the heat-resistant vellum. And I debated that because in the end, I didn't want to cover all that coloring that I did. So I decided to just go ahead and stamp on both pieces and then kind of see from there. So I inked up my stamp with some embossing ink and stamp that down on the heat resistant vellum, and then I'm covering this with some gorgeous Night Shift embossing powder by Brutus Monroe. So it looks black there, but when you shift it in the light after it's been heated, it's this beautiful purple sheen, which will bring out the purple in the berries. And then I also stamped it down onto that slate cardstock and covered it with some alabaster embossing powder. And in the end, so I'll heat these, and I love that heat resistant vellum. That's from Brutus Monroe as well. Because it works really quickly. And then I'll heat the other one. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim those both down so that I can compare them on top of my panel and see which one I like the best. So it's neat because it looks black, but when you shift it in the light, like I said, it looks like this beautiful purple. And that one was probably the better choice, but to be honest with you, I just did not want to cover up any of those berries. And I really loved how that purple in the embossing powder brought out the purple in my berries. So I'll glue my panel down to the slate cardstock, and then I'm going to manipulate the vellum to kind of see where I want it. And when I'm happy with where I want it, I'm actually just going to fold that right over the edge, because one of the there is a bird outside my window going nuts. Oh my goodness. Anyway, it's vellum, so any adhesive you put behind it will show. And so I'm just going to tape that down with some washi tape on the back. I don't know if you can hear that bird, but oh my goodness, I don't know what they're doing out there. Goodness gracious. Of course, it's when I need to film. Everything is happening today. Oh, I'll tape or glue that down to some more of your Nutch Mama's heavyweight cardstock, and I'm going to use some glue to glue down some of those dark sequins. And then I decided at this point I really wanted to add a little something to the center of those sequins, so I am adding some Nuvo Night Sky glitter drops because those match the berries really perfectly as well. And I'll do that for all 3 of those. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I do decide to grab the glitter that came in the kit because it's a really dark navy blue, and I thought it would be so pretty on just those parts of the berries that are the bottoms. So I'm just using some glue on that. And then I'm going to take the glue or the glitter that came in the kit, and I will cover it. And I know some people don't care for glitter just because it does make a mess. And you're going to laugh because, I don't know, it's just like the series of unfortunate events for me because I'm batting all that away. And I feel like I'm keeping it contained in that coffee filter. And then you're going to see me basically drop my paintbrush right into the glitter and spread it all over. So anyway, that's just the way my day was going. So here you go. There it is, all finished. I love, love, love this card. Labor of love, but worth every bit. Card number 4 is going to use one of the mason jar laser cuts, and I'm going to put that into my makeshift splatter box. I'm going to use this aubergine surface spray from Brutus Monroe. Love this stuff. Their surface sprays are so cool because they're just different than the other things that are on the market. You can layer them up and they can add texture, and it's just really cool. So I just spritzed it lightly on there, and you're going to see there's a few little bigger splotches, which I kind of like because I was kind of going for a little bit of a mixed media piece here, but it's still going to go on a card, and it won't be so thick that it won't fit into an envelope just fine. So I'll heat set that because I plan to do some stamping onto it. I'm going to use some of the Plum surface ink. This came in one of my previous inspiration boxes, so drag those out and use those, man, I'm telling you. So I inked up one of the berries from the stamp set. Honestly, I didn't use the stamp set that much for these 5 cards, 1 kit, because I have some other plans. Check out, head over to their blog some of these times. I'm usually there on Wednesdays, and my plan is to have a card up for maybe not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday for sure. All right, so now I've decided I just want to ink up the edges using that same Plum surface ink. I thought it would be nice. I do have the aubergine, but I wanted to have a little bit of contrast with the purples, so I had that. I'm going to let that kind of dry, but I'm also going to grab out some of my Sterling Sparkle Embossing Powder by Brutus Monroe. Love, love, love this stuff. So it's not just silver, it has some like glitter bits in it, so it's gorgeous. And I'm going to use the embossing ink to try and just get the jar lid. Now, Brutus Monroe just came out with an embossing ink pen, and I do desperately want to get my hands on that. So it would have made this so much easier than trying to eyeball where I put the embossing ink, but that's okay. I used my paintbrush, wiped off the excess, and then I'll just heat set that because I wanted this to obviously look like the jar lid. And I love how that turned out. So very, very happy with that. Love it. And now I'm going to take some twine. I just had some twine in my stash and I cut off way too much, but apparently I was too lazy to cut it down. So I'm just going to keep on wrapping that around. And then when I get to the end, I will tie that into a little bow. I tried to do it freehand at first, and it was just too loose, so I was like, Cassie, what are you doing? Grab your reverse tweezers. That's why you have them. So you just tie it real tight, grab your reverse tweezers so it'll hold that, and then you can tie your bow very, very simply, and you don't have to worry about it being loose. And there you have it. Now I'm going to take that piece of, it's like a designer paper, that came in the kit as well, and I'm just going to take some Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide ink along with the Vivos Beauty brush, and I'm just going to ink it around the edges. I just thought this would be kind of fun since purple and yellow are contrasting colors. It would really just make this card pop. I want to stamp my sentiment right onto the jar, so I'm testing out to make sure that the embossing powder won't stick to the background. And so now I'm going to ink up my stamp with some embossing ink, stamp that down right onto the laser cut, and then cover that with some alabaster embossing powder. And I'm loving this jar even more now. So this is so, so cute and so cool. I can't wait to make a journal page with one of these jars because they're so neat. And if they are available separately, I will definitely have those linked down below, along with, like I've said before, everything else that I've used. I did grab some of the sequins that came in the kit. I'm using some of the bigger ones. I don't typically grab these, but I thought this would be so fun on that background, and I thought they matched really nicely with the purple jam that I put into my jar, or on my jar in this case. And then I'll just use my glue to stick down my jar on top of those. So those are kind of just poking out from the sides. Then I'll take my crystal katana along with that same glue, and I'll put down some more of those sequins. And keep in mind, this glue will dry clear, so you won't see those white dots sticking through. And there you have it. That finishes off card number 4. I really love how that one turned out. For our final project today, I grabbed one of the panels along with my Copics, and I want to show you just how easily this one was to color. I didn't show you all the coloring because it's just not necessary, but these berries, you don't have to color each berry individually. Just slap some color down and then, find out where your light source is going to be, and you can add color so, so quickly. This panel didn't take me any time at all to color. And I use the colors RV25 and RV29. So if you're looking to do something like that, it's very simple to do. And then for my greens, which I don't show you too much of the green just because it's the same sort of thing, I end up using the colors G03 and G07. But yes, these berries were so, so simple. I wish I had a bunch more of these because you could just go crazy making panels like this. But yeah, all you do, I slapped down a bunch of color. I wasn't concerned about, individual berries. I put down, a wash of where I thought my darkest might be, like and then I just add a little dot to the tops. And then there I did the green. And then for a final bit around that, I did take my W1 around each of the berries, just all around the entire berry. And then I did use a little bit of W3 on the bottoms, like my light source was, the light was coming from the top, so it's darker at the bottom. I decided to take this panel, which is the entire front of an A2 size card, which measures, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I cut it right in half because I wanted to make 2 projects out of this. So I'm using my liquid glue to adhere this down to the one of the dark blue or the navy, well, maybe this was the royal blue. I think this was the royal blue cardstock that came in the kit. And then I'm going to trim that down with my guillotine trimmer. And then I've got these 2 panels that are backed with that beautiful blue background. I wasn't even tracking blue, and then I thought, well, let's see what's in the kit, and grab that blue out. And I thought, oh, I love those together. So I have some more of that Not Your Mama's heavyweight cardstock. You can't see what I'm doing. I do apologize for that. But I am using the embossing folder that came in the kit that just says thank you. And I'll show that to you a little bit better. But to score this, like all of my cardstock, the Not Your Mama's, because it's so heavyweight, I do score it at 4 1/4 on this one on both sides. I flip it and score it on both sides so that it works those fibers a little bit better. And see, that's what the embossing does. I think it looks very cool, very subtle. You can make a bunch of thank yous like this. And then I'll glue that panel, or one of the panels, down to the front. And I love how that turned out. Just this nice, fun little thank you. And then I'm going to make a tag to go with that. So a tag that goes on a bag. So you have a thank you card and a bag. So you can put a little gift in there. Maybe one of your little hostess gifts or something like that. And there you have it. A super simple tag and card using one of those panels. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the cards that I made today. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did, in fact, have a favorite, go ahead and leave that down in the comment section down below. Otherwise, you don't have to comment on that. You can comment on anything. Just, leave a little comment. I usually always try to respond. If I miss it, I do apologize. But if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you all so much for stopping by.